Welcome back, folks. Okay, welcome back, folks. I'm not sure exactly when I start talking when I'm streaming because I don't know what I'm doing, but welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the Kineticist Playtest, and I'm hyped for this because goddamn, I love me some Kineticist Playtest. Or, more accurately, I just really like the Kineticist class from 1st edition, although I'm expecting there to be a lot of changes because it's a whole new edition and they have a lot more experience designing things. So, I have hopes for this class, but I'm not expecting anything. Or rather, I'm trying to keep my expectations fairly grounded. But I'm not in the business of, fucking around and ignoring something that I'm really excited for and I've been waiting to look over for 15 minutes because I scheduled the stream 15 minutes later than I should have. So let's just jump into it. So the only thing that I've seen so far, everything else past this is brand new. I did take a quick peek, and it's a Constitution-based class, which I'm very excited about because this was mainly my one big hope for the class. Constitution as your key ability score plus 8 hit points per level. That sets up the foundation for a very, very interesting class. But let's actually read the little blurb before we actually get into all the mechanical goodness. And hello. Yeah, I really hope that Ride the Blast is in, because that was a really stupid ability from 1E that was still really funny, because being able to turn into fire then shoot yourself at someone is just hilarious. Then you could literally come in like a fireball. But the power of the elements flows within you. Roaring fire, pure water, fleeting air, steadfast earth. An inner gate inexorably tied to your body channels your power directly from the elemental planes, causing elements to leap to your hands, whirl around your body, and blast your foes at your whim. As your connection to the planes grows strong, you attain true mastery over your chosen elements. Whenever I actually read things out loud in streams, I remember how bad I am at actually reading things. So yeah. Oh, okay, this is a really interesting preview of things to come. Without any restriction on how often you can use your abilities, you become a reliable slinger of magic. That is okay. I'm interested to see how this will happen. So basically, either you're basically going to be super stereotypical, or they're suggesting that a lot of kineticists are very stereotypical, where if they shoot fire out of their hands, they have a fiery temperament. But of course, you can do whatever the hell you want. It's RP. So connection to the natural world. Okay. Okay. So, I think that we're done with all the flavor for the entire playtest. Looking over this half of the page, now let's get on to all the crunchy stuff, because I love me some crunchy mechanics. So the initial proficiencies, you're trained in perception, expert in fortitude reflex, and trained in will. Okay, that's pretty standard. I'm expecting kineticists to be really bad in perception, especially with Constitution being their key ability score. They have to have a bad defense. So it looks like their mental defenses are going to be worse generally. Honestly, I am hoping that kineticists follow like the rogue and swashbuckler saving proficiency, where they become a legendary in a particular skill at level 13. Legendary in fortitude, of course, but we'll see. Trained in nature, and then 3+ your intelligence modifier. That's really not that many skills. Kineticists are not known for being skill monkeys. Well, some of them could be, but that's beside the point. Oh, they're not trained in martial weapons. They're only trained in simple. Okay, that's actually huge. So presumably they're not going to be using weapons a lot. Although they could be like a rogue. And trained only in light armor, which is good. If you give someone an amazing constitution, also don't give them heavy armor proficiency. That's silly. And I'm expecting this class to use substantial class. But let's move on. And I am actually going to be going over all of their class features because who knows what they haven't done. Although before we do any of that, let's first go over the key terms because these are bound to come up literally everywhere. So impulse. The primary magical action kineticists use are called impulses. To use an impulse action, you must have an element gathered, which is usually done with the gather element kineticist action. The element must be appropriate to the element trait of the impulse that you use. For example, if you have water gathered, or you must have water gathered to use an impulse as the water trait. Using an impulse requires gesturing and focusing. This means that it also has the concentrate and manipulate. Okay, kinetic aura. This impulses that have an elemental aura around you have this trait. They have the aura trait. Thank you for actually including the aura trait. There's a lot of stuff from the core rulebook that doesn't have the aura trait that should. And a 10-foot emanation, unless you have an ability that changes the size of the aura. Secondly, if you already have a kinetic aura, it takes you one action fewer to use a different kinetic aura impulse with the same element trait. So basically, it's easier to start stacking auras of the same element once you have an aura functional. And it lasts until you get knocked out, until the encounter ends, or until you use a new kinetic aura. Okay, so once you're in a kinetic aura, it is easier to swap to other kinetic auras of the same type. You have to keep that in mind for whenever we're talking about either like class feats, probably. Overflow. This sounds like a burn mechanic. Oh god, I just saw the what's the next one? I just need to talk for a second. They're finally giving brutal to PCs. This honestly could be broken. Being able to use your strength modifier for a ranged attack means that if you get a way to get heavy armor, that is crazy strong. But like that's an existing weapon trait that has previously only ever been given to monsters because it's broken as all hell. So I'm interested to see what they're doing here. So overflow. Powerful elemental impulses have the overflow trait, indicating any element that you've gathered is consumed in the impulse. Okay. I'm making a lot of assumptions about this class just from looking at these traits. So anything that I'm saying here could be wrong because I'm literally just looking at traits. But okay, so whenever basically an overflow is an especially powerful elemental impulse that uses up the element that you've gathered. Channeling your element to this limit means that you can only use one overflow impulse per round, even if you gather an element again. So basically, overflows should be treated like finishers in that they are powerful abilities that can only be used once a turn and take you out of a state that you would otherwise be in for entering during combat. I can work with that. So let's look over basic class features. So basic ancestor background, initial proficiencies, inner gate, and channeled elements. Oh yeah, specifically what I was thinking of is that for characters who already have like if there's a way for a fighter or a champion or any character that uses a lot of heavy armor can like multi-class into a kineticist to get a brutal range attack, then that's where it's potentially way too powerful. Now, it could be possible maybe for a kineticist to multi-class into like champion, or maybe is it Bastion or Sentinel that is the heavy armor archetype, but those can give you decent heavy armor proficiency. And if it matches the same proficiency level as their light armor, then it might still be too good. Because it means that they don't have to focus, or they don't have to put ability boosts on getting way ahead of things. So, inner gate. So you've opened, or weakened or opened a supernatural conduit that connects you to an elemental plane. Choose with it if this is a dedicated gate, which connects you to a single plane, or a dual gate which connects you to 2, or a universal that connects you to all. So you can pick 1, 2, or 4 elements. This determines how many different elements you can channel and how many bonus impulse feats you select at level 1. So you're getting bonus class feats at level 1, but they have to be impulse feats. So a dedicated gate, this is the single element gate, limiting you to a single element, but giving you great skill. You select one element, and whenever you channel it, you get 3... you can channel that one element, and you get 3 level 1 impulse feats. Jesus! That's good. And yes, there are going to be, in Rage of Elements, there's going to be metal and wood as elements. No Aether element, and no Void element, and no positive. Because I'm assuming that the positive, all the positive energy stuff from the wood element is going to get taken out, because they're focusing on the nature element. Regardless, dual gate, you get 2 first level impulse feats at level 1, and one from each element that you can do. And universal gate, you can channel all 4 elements. And whenever, okay, so the universal gate is that when you can change level 1 every single turn, or not every single turn, that'd be broken, every single day. Interesting. So universal gate kind of is a bit more like a prepared spellcaster. But gather element, so it's like you focus innerly, and then there's a bunch of weird elemental nonsense that appears around you. It's not quite a Dragon Ball Z power-up, but it's pretty much a Dragon Ball Z power-up. Or, you know, Aang having to do a bunch of weird spinny stuff with his staff before he can do anything with airbending in Avatar. So gather element, you have to have a hand free. That's big. That's big, especially if you have... Well, we'll see how big that is. I'm still worried about that brutal trait. So choose an element that you can channel. You channel that. That hand is now occupied with the element that you've channeled, and you can't use it for anything other than elemental impulse. Okay, so basically, you're occupying your hand. You can use the release free action to cause it to dissipate. Using an action that's overflow causes this to end. You can only have 1 element gathered at a time. Okay, good. I'm glad that I finished reading this before I started talking. I was wondering if you could just gather 2 different elements in 2 hands, but you can't do that. So gathered air ruffles your clothes and hair, fire sheds light like a torch, and water is fresh and drinkable. Okay. So they create water into a first level spell, but then Kineticist can do it anyway. And you can gather it and hold it and use it in environments where it wouldn't normally be possible. So you can create fire underwater. Or gather air in a vacuum. Okay. Good. It means that you don't have the Roy Mustang problem of being useless when you're wet. Elemental impulses. First, have to talk about elemental impulses. Okay, so whenever you select this, or basically, you can select impulse feats, which have the impulse trait, so long as you can actually channel that specific element. Oh, that's a really good point. You can just channel water and then give yourself a bath whenever you feel like your Azurketi's getting too dry. That's actually really useful for Azurketi, now that I think about it. Wheel. Okay, so an impulse without an elemental trait, no. And about Elemental Blast having, or not having, the attack trait, I'm looking for a second before I say anything. Yeah, that's not actually that unusual. Like, Power Attack does not have the attack trait because it doesn't need, this specific action doesn't need to have the attack trait because you make a melee or ranged strike. That's a... I cannot draw lines today. That... I meant to get the erase. Who knew that Microsoft Edge is not a good drawing program? But because it is a strike, it does have the attack trait and suffers MAP. So yeah, it's because there is an attack as part of the action. They don't need to have the attack trait. But it does have evocation. So if they ever add an ability that just gives you a resistance bonus to a particular type of saving throw, then kineticists are in a bad spot. But basically, the damage die, damage type, and traits are dependent on the melee and range, whether it's melee or ranged, and what element you're using. If it's a melee strike, you add your strength modifier as normal, and if the element is more, or as the element is more intense when physically closer, so fire is hotter when close to you, so you add your strength score. And I am very happy that it's not constitution based, because if it was constitution based damage that they could just do super reliably, then they would be much more reliant on a single ability score. Though this is not actually an unarmed attack, it uses your proficiency with unarmed attacks, gets any bonuses and penalties that apply to unarmed attacks, and uses and it's okay. I am curious as to why they spend a paragraph saying this is not actually an unarmed attack, except that it uses your proficiency from unarmed attacks, gets any bonuses or penalties that apply to unarmed attacks, and uses weapon damage die and traits the same way that unarmed attack does. It benefits from hand wraps with mighty blows, and if you have weapon specialization, it deals additional damage as if it were an unarmed attack. How is this not just an unarmed attack? I guess it doesn't interact with actions the same way as an unarmed attack, so you can't, say, multi-class into monk and then flurry of blows. I guess that's it. Well, no, it's a separate action, so you wouldn't be able to flurry of blows anyway. But impulses are magical, but they aren't spells. However, things that would restrict you from casting spells, like polymorph for protection against spells, also apply to impulses. Any impulse that you use is your level, even if the feat is a lower level than yours. That is really important for counteracting. So these basically heighten. In these cases, the impulse ends with a level entry. This lists the level at which it gets an upgrade, or has an entry with a plus sign that is, so it's just heightening. It just heightens. But let's look at these damage, or let's look at this damage. So air does 1d4 slashing damage, has the agile, finesse, reach. Oh shit. That's an agile, finesse, versatile, bludgeoning reach weapon. Yeah, it does 1d4 damage, it doesn't matter, it has fucking reach. If there's any way for Kineticist to get an AOO, that's very good. And it also has a 120 foot range. Earth is 1d4, but it doesn't have agile or finesse. So that's good for those strength-based kineticists. Because what it seems like is you want to max out your con, and then you also want to choose either dex or strength to focus on, depending on what elements you're going for. Fire does 1d6, and has agile and finesse, but no reach. And it just does fire damage. Oh! I just caught that. I mean, obviously the important things to recognize is Earth is really shitty at range, because as a 20-foot range increment, Air is amazing at ranged. Earth also does the highest damage because it has propulsive on its, so it gets half your strength modifier on ranged attack, ranged damage rolls. Fire is the all-rounder, it seems like. However, the important thing to keep in mind is fire is the only one that actually does an elemental damage type. The water blast doesn't deal cold damage, it does bludgeoning. So dealing fire damage is really nice until you run into something that has fire resistance, which is actually pretty dang common. It depends a lot on your campaign, but fire resistance is the most common type of resistance. So if you're really focusing on fire, I really hope that they add a way for you to deal with fire resistance. There was a way to do it in 1E that was really weird. very, very interesting. But we're still at level 1, by the way. So, adapt element. It is trivial for you to so this is a concentrate, evocation, kineticist, manipulate, primal, and you have to have a hand free 2 actions. You choose a non-magical portion of an element that you can see that's within 10 feet. And it can't be like, this can't be stopped by an enemy. It has to be smaller than, it has to be able to fit in the palm of your hand, so like a twig or a small rock. Okay, if you've gathered an element, you choose a portion of, well, typos. That should be a portion of that element. Choose one of the following options. So you gather element, drawing it from the environment instead of your inner. Oh, so basically, with gather, you gather your element to use all of your other abilities, but it's from your environment instead of from you, so you don't bring fire from your body, you bring fire from a candle nearby. So effectively, the dreaded movie version of firebenders that we don't talk about. Move, you just move the portion 1 foot in any direction for 2 actions. This is a first level ability that's basically cantrips. This is not going to be particularly powerful. Regulate. This can only be used for air, fire, and water. You change the temperature, making it colder or warmer. This can snuff out a flame or turn water into ice or steam. After this change, it cools down or warms naturally, though you can keep regulating it to maintain the chosen temperature. An item that gets hot enough can be used as an improvised weapon that deals 1 fire damage. So, I am curious. On so I guess if you just can channel air, then you can make things warmer or colder. Including with fire, I guess? This manipulation of heat? I don't know. Moving on. Sculpt. This allows you to change a small portion of something. It's very fragile. So it's just making cool stuff out of rocks. Not gonna complain, I like making cool stuff out of rocks. Sustain, you choose 1 creature within 10 feet that can breathe air or water. You then transfer that element to that creature, allowing it to breathe until the start of your next turn. This should have the same wording as regulate, where regulate, where you may keep regulating to maintain the chosen temperature. That needs to be included in sustain, because otherwise, yeah, you give the fish person the ability to breathe underwater, or breathe above water, they walk out and they start drowning the next turn. You should be able to, you know, spin 2 actions around to allow someone to breathe underwater or breathe on land. I don't know. Also, importantly, you can't use this to move water over someone's head and start drowning them on land. It has to be a creature that can already breathe what it is you're trying to put around their head. Okay, so you do get a Kineticist feat at first level. Skill feats as normal. Elemental resistance. While you have an element gathered, you gain resistance to your level to the damage source that has that trait. Oh, so if you take damage from like a water elemental or hydraulic push while you have water gathered, you gain resistance. Equal. Oh, that's equal to your level, but I guess that's fair. That is actually, that makes fire especially good. Because if I'm remembering correctly, I believe the flaming rune and all of the other, actually, flaming rune definitely has the fire trait. What about, is it chill? What is that rune called? Is it the caustic rune? Nope. I can never remember the name of any of the, well, let's just go for that shocking rune. That's an easy one. Does shocking have the air trait? Or does it have electricity? It has electricity, meaning that that channeling air would not protect you from that. So then I'm assuming that the rune that increases your acid damage probably has the acid trait, and the one that does cold damage probably has the cold trait and not the water trait. So elemental resistance is amazing for fire, and it's a bit less good for the others because, like, outside of hydraulic push, I think that Cone of Cold is probably the most archetypal water evocation spells, and that is a cold spell, not a water spell. So there aren't a whole lot of like earth, air, or water spells, but there's a shit ton of fire. Elemental resistance is amazing for fire. Although if you're channeling fire and you're fighting a fire elemental, elemental resistance is amazing, but your damage is going to be nothing because it's going to be immune to fire. Extract element. Oh. Okay. This is something that you could optionally take in 1E that I hardly ever saw anyone take. Which is, I manipulate fire. I'm fighting a fire elemental who's made out of fire. I'm gonna rip the fire elemental in half. Choose, this is not an impulse. So you don't have to have, choose an element that you can channel and target a creature within 30 feet that has the trait matching the element. Otherwise has an elemental, or has that elemental nature. They must make a fortitude save because it's capacity or take 2d4 damage as you steal the elemental essence from their body. Crit success, nothing happens. Success, they take half damage, and you gather element. Okay, so a little bit of action compression. Never gonna turn down action compression. Any kinetic abilities that you use with that specific massive gathered element can affect the target as even it would normally be immune, and it takes a -1 circumstance penalty to its AC and saves. If the target normally has resistance that would allow it to apply, ignore that resistance. It would normally be immune that is equal to its level. So you're still going to have a pretty hard time fire elemental as a fire kineticist because they're going to have resistance equal to their level, but at least you can deal damage. I won't turn down damage. Failure, it's basically a basic save. But so long as they don't critically succeed, you gather element and you can actually deal damage to them or deal just a lot more damage. And this heightens really weird. So every 3 levels, the damage increases by 1d4. So you're not doing this for the damage of extract element. You're doing this to be able to deal damage to fire elementals with fire. And also, this is specifically, this only affects your impulses. So, you can't, like, extract element from a fire elemental, then hurt them with a fireball. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going over the feats, because goddamn, there's gotta be a lot. Considering how, a human with a what is it? The gate where you only get 1 element. That's a dedicated gate. A human with natural ambition and a dedicated gate can get 5 first level feats. There've got to be a lot of feats. Okay, so Iron Will, 3rd level, expert. Okay. And standard skill increases. So what I was expecting a 3rd level expert will. Ability boost, critical element. You gain access. Critical specialization effects for elemental blasts with 1 element that you chose. So you can move someone 5 feet with air. If they're on the ground, they're knocked prone with earth. If it's not on the ground, then it descends 20 feet. Or up to 20 feet. Fire, you deal 1d6 points of persistent fire damage. And if you have an item bonus to attack rolls, then, you know, you add that to the persistent damage. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to looking through the feats. I just want to have a good understanding of their basic proficiencies before I look at the feats, because otherwise I'm going to make some really dumb assumptions. And then water, splash damage. It's really bad splash damage, but if you're fighting anything that's weak to bludgeoning damage, I guess that's good. Also, you look like you're going to become an expert at level 7, so you are behind the curve for martials. Which is probably good, because this class seems insanely, or depending on how you build them, incredibly, like they can react to a lot of different situations. So I can understand an accuracy penalty if they can just kind of pick from their bag of tricks what would work great for the encounter. So adapt terrain. You can use adapt element within 30 feet of you instead, and it's light bulk instead of so it's light bulk instead of negligible bulk, which is a lot better, and within 30 feet instead of 10. And you can also proliferate, so you cause an element to spread. This might cause a square to become difficult terrain or hazardous terrain. If it does deal damage, then it would deal damage equal to half your level. And you can spread this, that fills the square into another square. It reacts naturally. So basically this is the Pyromaniac's ability for, oh, I've lit this one house on fire, but let's spread it across the alleyway and really get things started. I mean, yeah, that's a fun ability. Not useful for combat, but not everything needs to be useful for combat. And of course, you become a expert at level 7 with weapons and elemental blasts. And of course, elemental blasts includes just regular punching and simple weapons. Level 7, Master Fortitude with Juggernaut and weapon specialization. Juggernaut is what I was expecting for level 7. Level 9, you're finally an expert in perception. Again, what I was expecting from the outset whenever I said I was expecting perception to be shitty for kineticists. Elemental expertise at level 9. Your class DC is now an expert, which is good. You're going to be using your class DC a lot, I'm assuming, with different impulses. Elemental flexibility. Whenever you make your daily preparations, gain 1 elemental impulse feat of 8th level or lower that you don't already have. You can use that feat into the next daily prep. Oh, so that's similar to, I'm forgetting its name, but the feat that gives you additional fire feats. It's probably Mark's ability. But that's a really fun feat. You either use to just never change the impulse that you pick up, or actually swap around what you would think what you need for the day. You're like a little bit of a baby wizard in that regard, or really any prepared spellcaster. Evasion. Okay, so it's not exactly like what I was expecting. I was expecting to get a legendary Fortitude at 13. But I'm not going to turn down getting Master Reflex, because goddamn, you make a lot of reflex saves in this game, and having good ones is very useful. Pure Adaptation. Adapt element on anything 1 bulk or lower within 60 feet. Obviously, way better than light bulk within 30. And you can also purify. You can remove pollutants from air or water, or expel plants from soil. This can't change the grade of a material, alter the form of a manufactured object, or change the structural integrity. If this would cause it to remove an alchemical or magical pollutant, such as a poison or curse, it counteracts it. Okay, and you can't just try over and over and over again. And this, I think... Okay. There are gonna be people using this for some shenaniganry. So, either there are going to be people who rule that, oh no, you can't actually try and remove or purify the alcoholic beverage that you have in your hand because it's not water, it's beer, and you're a water kineticist. But what I would rule that would work because it's predominantly water, but I wonder, does it like centrifuge things? Because then like people are going to make the claim of, oh, I want to purify someone's blood, which they shouldn't be able to do because that's a part of a creature and this targets objects, but regardless, people are going to try it. Oh, reflex saves, I feel I've said this in a video where I went over saving throws, but I feel like reflex saves are by far the most common, but they generally just do a bunch of damage. There are, of course, ones that are a bit rarer, that are scary as all hell, but I'm generally happier to fail a reflex save than a will save. But again, I normally play characters who maximize reflex saves, so I just don't fail them. Because that's what happens when you play a swashbuckler. So Blast Mastery is at level 13. Interesting. So they become an expert in their attack rolls 2 levels later than most marshals, but they become a master at the same level as most marshals. Okay. I would have to actually see other people do math to be able to determine how impactful that will be. Light armor expertise, fair enough. Greater Juggernaut at 15th level. Legendary fortitude saves are absolutely killer. Greater weapon specialization, at the level where that would expect to appear. Improved elemental flexibility is just like, you know, the fighter improved martial flexibility. 2 impulse feats are better than just 1. And elemental immunity is, I think, the only way that I can think of in the game to get like complete immunity to a particular source of damage. Again, like, fire is by far the best option here because most effects that deal fire, or that deal fire damage, are also like fire effects. Like I'm just gonna take a quick look here to try and prove this point. Let's take a young red dragon. A young red dragon's damage or deals has the fire trait on their jaws and on their breath weapon. But if we take a white dragon of an equivalent-ish level, has cold on all of their stuff, not water. So fire is by far the most widely applicable trait here, which, hell yeah. Elemental mastery, so finally your class DC is a master proficiency, level 19, light armor mastery. And then final gate, level 19, so this is the capstone. You are permanently quickened to gather an element. I'm surprised that that is not a level 20 class feature. Or a level 20 class feat, because oftentimes permanently quickened abilities are class feats instead of class features. Although that is really good for swapping around what element you're immune to if you have a universal gate. So you can just swap back and forth between, like, oh, I'm gonna go to fire because who knows. Oh wait, this person is actually casting a bunch of water spells. Let me swap over to water real quick. And it allows you to use your elemental impulses a lot easier. And now we get to feats. What appears to be a lot of feats, and they're, oh, thank God they're actually organized Ah, thank you, Paizo, for actually organizing these by element. That makes things a lot easier. So I'm just going to be going over the basic. Oh, I guess I haven't looked at the level 19 class feature for thaumaturges. Huh. But I'm going to be going over the universal class feats and then going over the elemental ones in order, rather than trying to manage to do all of this by level, because fuck that. So, elemental familiar. So it is a familiar that is made out of an element instead that you can channel instead of a normal creature. It has the elemental trait instead of the animal trait, as well as trait for one thing that you can channel. And you can also change it whenever you make your daily prep. Okay. It's immune to bleed, paralyze, poison, sleep, and the element. Oh, so it's just immune to fireball from first level. Wait. I need to... Whenever you get gain Kineticist feats, you can also select. You don't, like, if you are a human with natural ambition, you don't get a Kineticist feat, and then because you get a Kineticist feat, you also get an Impulse feat. It's just that Impulse feats are also Kineticist feats. Like Impulse feats are Kineticist feats, they just have the Impulse trait. So that's a very good familiar, because it's immune to a lot of stuff that other familiars have to deal with. And it uses Constitution to determine perception. Don't ask you. There's no answer for how on earth that works. Oh no, I get it. I'm misreading a lot also. You're also probably looking at a much lower resolution version of the image. Oh, and don't get me wrong, humans still get a crazy amount of feats at level 1. You can get 5 impulse feats at level 1, which is nutty. Although we'll have to actually see how good level 1 impulse feats are. So elemental weapon, you can shape elemental energy. Whenever you gather an element, you can shape it into a form of an element that you wield. When you select this feat, choose one element that you can channel and one type of weapon. Okay, it must be one-handed, simple, or martial, but you aren't trained in martial weapons. And it has to be one-handed, that restricts things a bit. Okay, so you can make like a stone rapier and then stab people for bludgeoning damage. That's fun. Oh, and it uses your proficiency from Elemental Blast. So that means that you can actually make martial weapons and use your unarmed proficiency effectively. And you can also change this after 1 day of retraining. And it can be used for impulses, and it's expended from overflow, and so on. It can also be used for elemental blasts or standard strikes, provided they're melee blasts or strikes if you choose an elemental weapon, or ranged blast or strikes if you choose a ranged weapon. Okay. So if you make a melee weapon, you can still make an elemental blast so long as it is a melee blast, or a ranged blast if it's a ranged weapon. Okay. And you still must reload. Important stipulation. And flexible blast. You can give any melee blast the finesse trait. Oh, okay, I don't like this. I don't think that you should be able to give a ranged elemental blast brutal. I think that's too good, because that means that you can make like I guess you still need dex for your armor, but let's say that you're human. Hypothetically, you're human, and you take either the heritage or the racial feat that gives you a general feat, and then with that general feat, you take medium armor proficiency, and then at level 1, you also take flexible blast, and then yeah, it is nice. You can make a gun, you don't have to purchase the overly expensive ammunition, which is nice. But so you could play like an earth kineticist in medium armor that has just as accurate of a ranged attack as they do a melee attack, which is basically something that no other martial or martial-like character can do. I would have to see it playtested to see how crazy it is, but it sounds like it's gonna be nuts. So kinetic activation. You choose your inner gate to directly unlock the potential of elementally powered magic items. You can activate magic items that require you to be able to cast a spell, provided you can activate them to cast a spell with the same Okay. You can use scrolls of fireballs or wands of fireball so long as you are a fire kineticist. Okay, that's very situational, but fire staves are cool. Is there a water staff? Doesn't look... oh, that's because I'm spelling it wrong. It's probably staff of fire. And staff of... There's no staff of water. There's no staff of earth. No staff of air. Of course, you probably can custom create staves. Well, no, you definitely can custom make staves. You can probably custom make staves based on the element that you're using, but I can't say without a doubt. That is a good question, because you don't have spell slots. Never mind, staves aren't good for kineticists, because you don't have any spell slots to manipulate them with. Yeah, it'd have to be wands or scrolls, which of course are more useful for situational spells. Voice of Elements. You gain 3 benefits for this one action. This is an impulse. You can speak the language associated with your element. You can commit with mindless elementals on a basic level. So this is basically wild empathy, but for elementals. And finally, you get a +2 circumstance bonus on charisma-based skill checks. So you get a bonus on your checks to try and talk to elementals. I mean, if you're in an elemental-focused campaign, which I hope you are because you're playing a kineticist, that's amazing. Blast Barrage. 3 elemental blasts each at a different target, and your MAP applies normally. I mean, that's cool as hell. Yeah, the thing is, you would think it kind of sounds like it's trick item, except that you can just activate them, you don't have to make a check, and it's just guaranteed. But it has to have the trait. Blast Barrage, I mean, being able to make 3 attacks for 2 actions is pretty good. I hope that you're using an Agile Blast to give your second and third shots a much better chance of hitting. Okay, so level 4. Another Universal Impulse. You choose a... Oh, this is an Overflow. First Overflow we've seen. So you basically choose an elemental that has a trait matching the element that you have gathered. The element becomes controlled by you if its level is lower than your level -3, or slowed 1 so long as you sustain this if it's equal to your level -2 or higher. And it gets a will save to resist being controlled by you or to end the slowed effect. And if it's under someone else's control, it cannot be slowed. And the controlling creature also makes the saving throw. Okay, so it's unaffected or temporarily immune. Nothing on a success. Failure, they're controlled and slowed 1 for as long as... I don't think this is very good. Well, no, sorry. In the standard Pathfinder game, I don't think this is particularly good. If you are in an elemental campaign where you're going to the various elemental planes, then this is incredible, or just much more useful. And those types of campaigns are probably going to be a lot more common once the book on the elemental planes is put out, which this class is a part of. But in a standard campaign, most of the time that you're going to be running into an elemental is whenever someone summons one. Natural elementals aren't like hugely common. More often you're just going to be running into a druid summons an elemental or something like that. Actually, I'm not certain. I don't actually know, because a lot of my experience that I'm kind of speaking out of my ass from, and saying that it's correct, is from first edition, where it was very, very, very easy to summon elementals. Actually, now that I think about it, this might be a lot better in 2e now that I'm thinking about it. But still, if you're in an elemental campaign, this is incredible. If you aren't, then it's still it's just very situational. It's just that situation comes up more in specific campaigns. It's like having a ability that helps you whenever you're fighting devils. In specific campaigns, that's amazing. In others, it's very situational. Level 6, Cycling Blast. You have to have a dual gate or universal gate. In either order, you can make an elemental blast and gather an element, and you must gather a different element than the one that you currently have gathered. And this is an impulse. So basically, this is oh, wait a minute. I need a different element here. I made a mistake. Swap to another element. This is also really useful if you just need a specific damage type, because theoretically, if you, like, let's say that you have Fire Blast, or let's say you have the Universal Gate, and you're fighting a fire elemental, but you want to deal bludgeoning damage to get around the fire resistance or fire immunity that that creature has. And let's say that it succeeded on its saving throw against Extract Element. So you stay in your fire you gather an element for fire, and then you end your turn or something. And then at the start of your next turn, you Cycle Blast. You gather power into, let's say, I don't know, air. Blast the fire elemental with air. And then do something with your second action. Then gather power for fire again. So you have a much, much higher resistance against the fire elemental's attacks. There's just a lot of uses for Cycling Blast. That's really, really cool. Stoke Element. It has to have dedicated gate. Okay, so you have the dual gate or universal gate feat, and then the dedicated gate feat. You feed more elemental power into the gate that you've gathered, causing it to grow much more potent. You can't use another impulse this turn. This isn't overflow. I thought it was from the description. But the first time you use on your next, the first impulse. Oh, no, never mind. I'm just very broken up while reading this. So you can't use another impulse this turn, but the first one you use next turn that has a damage roll, you get a +2 status bonus on the damage, or +4 if it also has the overflow trait. This bonus applies only to the initial damage roll, not any ongoing effects like resistant damage. And this benefit is lost if it's not used on your next turn. So basically, you use this as your third action, power yourself up, so then you can hit them much harder on the next turn. This is a very, very useful third action, and also improves at level 10, 14, and 18. It is so weird seeing levels instead of spell levels and heightens in the heightened section. Like every single time I thought, like, wait, level 18? Are there level 18 spells now? Aura shaping. This sounds really cool. I saw this in the feat list. So you exercise fine control over the shape and size of your aura. Whenever you have a kinetic aura impulse, you can choose to make it a 15-foot emanation or a 20-foot emanation. instead of the standard 10. So basically you can choose a 10, 15, or 20 foot emanation. Furthermore, you can designate a number of creatures equal to your constitution modifier. These creatures are immune to the effects of the kinetic aura or immune to its damage and drawbacks. You can choose the same for all creatures that you designate, though you can change the selection each time you use a kinetic aura impulse. In level 12, you can choose a 25 foot aura, or level 30, you can choose a 30 foot emanation. Important things about emanations is you can choose to exclude yourself. I was talking about cycling blast. Where cycling blast, you could swap to a different element. Stoke element is a good third action, so you can just use another impulse the next turn. So if you have like a 2-action impulse to hit someone really hard, you can use that 2-action impulse, then stoke your element, and then use it this next turn. But this aura shaping seems like it is an almost mandatory feat for any single kineticist that is using a bunch of aura, because being able to, I assume there's a fire aura, or you light everyone around you on fire. Not letting your allies on fire is a very good way to keep friends. Also, a 30-foot emanation size is amazing. Oh yeah, I'm now seeing what you're talking about. You can't gather an addition. I'm guessing that I'm assuming it's just that stoke element used to be not restricted to dedicated gate, and they just didn't take out that last part of the sentence. I imagine that for the playtest they didn't do their normal or they had an even looser comb than normal for their typo finding. Well, the reason why you would choose the 15 or 20 foot size is because it's normally a 10 foot. Like normal aura or normal kinetic auras are 10 foot emanations. So literally all of this is better unless you have enough allies around you, or more allies around you than your constitution modifier. If there are more things that you care about, like let's say you're in a wooden house and there's a kinetic aura, I'm assuming, that is going to light everything around you on fire. You might want to choose, like even if you can choose the 30-foot emanation, you might want to choose the 15-foot one, because you don't want to light the ceiling or walls on fire. But moving on, because oh my god, there's a lot of feats. Oh my god, this is amazing. Okay, Chain Blast is ridiculous. What were they thinking? I mean, I think it's cool, but it should have the overflow trait. Like, I think it'd be fine if it had overflow. So for 2 actions, you make a ranged elemental blast within the blast first range increment. Again, if this is an air blast, that is 120 feet. Or fire blast, 60 feet. If you hit, you can attempt a new ranged elemental blast from that target to a different creature that's within the first range increment of the creature that was hit, keeping the same multiple attack penalty as the first hit. You can keep on going until you miss or you hit a total of 5 things. And you can't target the same creature more than once with the same use of chain blasts. Each strike counts towards your multiple attack penalty, but the penalty doesn't increase until after you've made all of the strikes. This is a killer AoE ability, and I really like how it combines with the range increments and damages of range blasts already, because, like, yeah, being able to do this with, like, the Earth Blast is super cool, because well, yeah, it's super cool in a crowded space, but I mean, God, this is sick. I love this. I do really like this. I think that this has the potential to be too powerful. I think the easiest little fix that they can make is make chain blasts overflow. So if you want to do it every single turn, you have to gather element, chain blast, gather element, chain blast. So it's effectively a 3-action ability. The other thing they could do is just give you like a -2 penalty or -1 penalty on the attack roll. But yeah, that's super cool. I legitimately love that. So deconstruct element, you have to have the dedicated gate. It's a reaction once per minute. Whenever you're targeted by an effect that has the trait matching the element that you channel, your absolute dedication to the single element lets you attempt to gain control over it. So you can just attempt to counteract. Oh, I'm a dedicated fire person. Or fire kineticist. Pyrokineticist, let's use the actual term. So someone hits you with a fireball and you say no. You can also attempt to gather that element. This is, again, at least as of now, without the elemental book being put out, substantially better for pyrokineticists than other kineticists, because there's a lot more fire effects than there are water or earth or air. I'm expecting that there's going to be a shit ton of elemental spells, so there's going to be a lot more opportunities to run into water, air, and earth spells, but currently there's just not a lot of those that are offensive. Like 1 or 2. Fusion Blast, we have a dual gate and a hand free and 2 actions. Yep. With one action, with one element in one hand, you pull some of your other element into the other, and then combine the two in a complex blast. So it's an elemental blast, and you add the damage dice from your other blast to it. This uses the damage dice on the hand as it normally deal, and a normal one. So basically, that's really powerful. Holy shit. So, yeah, let's say that you're a crazy bastard with dual gates for water and earth. So then you fusion blast some poor sucker, which, let's say level 10, let's be generous and say you have a great striking room. A normal blast dealing 3d8, so 6d8. That's really good, especially because a lot of ranged blasts aren't going to be doing strength damage, or going to be doing damage based on your strength, so adding the dice is adding the majority of the damage. You're not a barbarian with a huge, like, just flat modifier on top. So gather amalgamation. You have to have a universal gate. So there's different abilities for each gate type. Also, universal gate seems like a bad name, because unless it's literally is going to be a universal gate whenever basically with the full release of this class, either the universal gate still gives you access to 4 different elements, or it gives you access to all 6 elements that are going to be in the full version of the class. If it only gives you access to 4, it's not a universal gate, and that's false advertising, because it only gives 4 out of 6. But let's see. This is a very interesting ability that I can't say that I can, like, concretely analyze right now because I just haven't looked at the elemental impulses yet to know what options you have. But I can say that this has an crazy amount of potential. This has an insane amount of potential to it so long as you have access to a lot of different impulses, and you're really going to have to focus on getting a lot of impulses as a universal gate. Kineticist. Yeah, that's a good point actually with Fusion Blast. Like if you have an air and earth as your Fusion Blast, you can deal like an additional couple D8 on your on your air blast. Because again, it uses the range increment of the first blast, but the damage of the second one. So you can either get earth or water for the extra D8s. Yeah. Like, Gather Amalgamation seems like it has a crazy amount of potential, but I can't exactly say exactly how much potential it actually has because I don't know all of the different impulses that you get access to. Also, can I say, impulse is such a better phrase than wild talent? I don't know what they were on with wild talent in 1E. And also burn was crazy because, like, you're gonna give burn to a class that has people that use fire and also every other element? That made no sense. Impulse is a much better name. Rapid reattunement. Oh shit. That is insane. Does Fighter have that for their martial flexibility? So you spend 10 minutes to swap out one feat you have due to elemental flexibility and replace it with a different feat. Jesus, that's incredibly good. So it's like, oh no, we're gonna be running into an encounter that I didn't prepare for. Oh well, I'll just prepare for it anyway. If you've ever, oh my god, that's so good, especially, oh my god. Yeah, I would really like for burn to be a thing. Like, I would like for burn, like, a really easy way that they could implement burn being a thing would be to give, like, let's say a level 1 feat that allows you to use overflow impulses, but not use up the element that you've gathered and just take, like, damage equal to 2 times your level. So it's like, oh shit, I really need to use this, but I just don't have the access for it. I'm willing to overtime. I would have liked it that option. Because I think characters kind of put themselves in the face. The thing is, you can use impulses more than once in a turn so long as they're not 2 actions or 3 actions. Yeah, rapid attunement is nutty. Yeah, overflow would be nice. Yeah, I've been talking about the Kineticist actually applying the drain condition for a while. I think that would have been sick. But I think that they're wanting the from what I'm looking at, it seems like they want the Kineticist to be approachable for new players, which is entirely understandable because new players are gonna play this class because, yeah, duh, I want to shoot fire out of my hands all day long. I don't want to deal with spell slots. Ew. Oh, no, yeah, the delay is frustrating. Oh, why is it on normal latency, not low latency? That sucks. Normally I have it on a different latency setting so I can see your guys' questions in a bit closer to real time. But rapid reattunement is amazing if you've ever been in a party with a wizard I think it's a spell study wizard. But whatever, the arcane thesis that allows for them to swap out a spell with 10 minutes, you're gonna know exactly how powerful being able to swap out abilities to get exactly what you need at the right time is. Like, a universal, like, okay, elemental flexibility is pretty, it's probably not great on a dedicated gate kineticist. It's probably pretty useful on a dual gate kineticist, and is fucking incredible on a universal gate. What is it? It is spell substitution. That's what it is. I have I have PF2 easy on a different monitor, so I'm searching up things so I don't completely talk out of my ass whenever I'm referencing things that already exist. Okay, so flowing kinetics. You have to have the ability to channel air, fire, or water. Whenever you use an impulse that has air, fire, or water and takes at least 2 actions, you can step or stride up to half your speed. You can do this before or after it. You can also burrow. If you have a different movement speed, you can use it. This is pretty dang sick. So far I've been really happy with this. Like, this seems pretty dang playable. Because it's not tied to recall knowledge. That's the problem. That I think was the main problem with the biggest problem, I should say, with the Thaumaturge. The Inventor was in a pretty good spot, actually, now that I think about it. But so far, I do like this more than any other playtest. Oh, yeah, Earth Metal seems tanky as shit, man. I am hoping for at least one that gets a D8 damage die. Or not D8, D10. But I also want Metal to be really good at range, because I want to kill people by shooting finger guns at them and actually shooting bullets. Back up Outlaws and Alkenstar character. But okay, Flowing Kinetics is very good. Extra mobility is always useful. Especially because, if I'm remembering correctly, Elemental Blast is an impulse. So you can, for one action, step and shoot someone. That's good. That's just good. Or Stride is even better if they don't have attacks of opportunity. Steadfast Kinetics is what you take if you are not one of those elemental types. When you use an impulse as the Earth Crate and takes at least 2 actions. Oh wait, no, never mind. It has to take at least 2 actions. So if you use literally other impulse that takes more than 2 actions, it's still really good. Oh yeah, I'm kind of approaching this from the position of, I think that getting brutal is too good. I think that getting brutal is far too powerful for a level 1 feat. Just full stop. That should be like level 10 or higher to get brutal. Okay, well, let me just, hey. Oh, sorry. I accidentally deleted your, sorry, Badam. I clicked on the wrong person there, because gotta love spam. Let's hide that person. Okay, sorry about that. Someone spamming. Oh, but Steadfast Kinetics. You get a +1 bonus to AC and fort saves. Yet no, it's kind of hard to click on an individual message whenever someone's spamming something in chat. So I'm actually surprised that that's the first time that's happened. But regardless, a bonus on AC and fortitude saves, If you're doing that every single turn, you're tanky as shit. That's good. And it's also status bonus, so if you're raising a shield or something, it stacks. Effortless Impulse, reaction whenever your turn begins. You sustain a spell for one of your impulses. That's good. I haven't seen an impulse that you sustain yet, but I'm assuming they exist, and being able to use them basically for free is good. Same reason why being able to sustain a spell for free is good. Imperious Aura. Prerequisites you have 2 aura impulses. Your turn begins while you have 1 active. Your glowing and majestic kinetic aura marks you as a true child of the elements. Oh, so you can swap to a different aura. Oh, that's cool. Free action swapping auras. I have yet to see any of these auras, but I can imagine a really fucking annoying build. So, imagine, if you would, a universal kineticist with aura shaping, so they can get a 30-foot emanation aura, Imperious aura, and then every aura that they can grab. So they just swap what aura they have every single turn to give exactly what is worst for the enemies and best for their allies. Oh, that's great, actually. I love cool aura effects, and there's no class that really focuses on them yet. Like, Champion has some, and yeah, spellcasters get access to some of them, but I want cool aura stuff. Maelstrom Blast. This is an overflow, takes 3 full actions. You detonate in a truly staggering number of blasts. So choose a melee elemental blast against every enemy in the blast reach. That's a lot better for air blasts, because they have reach, so obviously you can hit a lot more creatures. Or make a ranged elemental blast against each enemy in a cone with an equal... Maelstrom Blast on a air blast? What? Jesus! Yeah, let me just hit everyone with an air blast in a 120-foot cone. Jesus. 120-foot cone? That's a fucking insane AoE. Like, that's good. Like, that... Okay. Maelstrom Blast is okay on Earth. 20-foot cones are still pretty decent, and you can position yourself to where you can probably hit like 3 or 4 people with the whirlwind effect. It's a bit better on water blasts. It's pretty dang good on earth blasts because, or not on earth, on fire blasts, because 60-foot cone. That's a cone of cold size. And like, as a cone gets bigger, it gets way, way bigger as the length of the cone increases. 120-foot cone. What the fuck? Oh, I love that. That might be too good. They might need to limit the size of it, but I love it. Please don't, Paizo. This is fun. There's no situation where you need a 120-foot cone. Oh, your allies are gonna hate you. Oh my god. I'm willing to say that a 120-foot cone is probably like 4 times the total area of a 60-foot cone. Oh, that's amazing. Oh. Oh. Oh, that's great. Okay, so Nourishing Gate. So you can sustain yourself on a single drop of elemental dew or the slightest spark of the plane of fire. So you get a +2 status bonus on saves against poison, sleep, and effects that would make you paralyzed. You don't need to breathe, eat, or sleep anymore, although you still must take a full night's rest every 24 hours. During this time, you remain awake and alert, but must spend the time meditating or tuning to your inner gate. Each kineticist attunes in their own way. So you could be staring at a fire, or cultivating your inner fire, or if you want to be especially disruptive and probably not have anyone at the table like you, cause wildfires or burn down buildings. I mean, yeah, this is I feel in a similar spot to the monk level like 14 feet that just makes you immortal. In that, yeah, the bonuses on saves are pretty situational, but the RP benefits are immeasurable. So Nourishing Gate just feels like an RP feat. I mean, yeah, bonuses to saving throws against poison, sleep, and effects that would make you paralyzed are good. But you're really taking this for the RP. Flawless Element. You perfected your control over one element. Choose an element. Any impulses that normally would take 3 actions only take 2. You can still use only 1 overfull impulse around. That is a very good level 20 feat. And then Omnikinesis, you have to have improved elemental flexibility, which you're gonna have. That's like level 13 or something. You get it automatically. You realign your inner gate with a thought. Replace one of the feats that you have. Oh my god. Oh, that's so good. Oh, if you have Omnikinesis, you've got to have like Archives of Nethys up non-stop during combat of like, okay. Okay, what is the perfect feat to have for this exact turn? Both of these are legitimately amazing. I'm very happy with both of those level 20 feats, which is good because in general I feel like a lot of level 20 feats are a bit lackluster. But that is all of the universal feats out of the way. Meaning, we're probably about 20% of the way through the feats. So, let's continue before my voice gives out. So, Air. Aerial Boomerang, this is an overflow. 2 actions, each creature in a 60-foot line, okay then. 2d4 slashing damage with a basic reflex save. In the final square of the line, the boomerang whirls in place. Any creature that ends its square in that turn has to save against the boomerang. At the start of your next turn, the boomerang returns in a line with the same... Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I love this thing. Oh, that's so sick. I genuinely don't think that they have all that much else to do. Like, this seems pretty balanced. Its damage isn't great. The important thing is to say what happens, like, if there is a wall less than 60 feet away and it hits the wall, does the boomerang appear in that square where it touched the wall, or does it just not work? I'm assuming it would just appear in the square next to the wall. But that's so cool. Oh, and that's a good way to, like, control enemy positioning, because then they're going to want to get out of that line. That's fun. Air Cushion. I think this is just Featherfall. Although you have to gather element beforehand because it isn't impulse, it's not Featherfall. Find it will. But regardless, when someone is within 60 feet is following you, they slow to 60 feet around. This ends when they touch the ground and they take no damage from the fall. The cushion expires if they don't reach the ground within a minute. So 600 feet. Yeah, 600 feet. And, okay, you can only use this one person at a time, but at level 8, you can just air cushion on everyone. This is okay, but if you want to use this in case of, like, a pitfall trap or something, you already have to have your element gathered. So your exploration action should be to gather an element. But yeah, Featherfall at will is really fun. And also, this can allow you to jump off of 600-foot cliffs at level 1. This is a fantastic example of those abilities that allowed for you to, like, spend 10 minutes and learn a new insight, or spend 1 action and learn an insight. Air Cushion is a great example of insights that are really, or impulses that are really, really good for that, because this is very situational. But if you have to go down a 600-foot cliff and you've got 10 minutes to just swap to a different impulse and pick up Air Cushion, that's really good. Fair winds. Oh, this is an aura. Oh, this is a kinetic aura. Which is also an aura, actually, because it also has the aura trait. But so everything within 10 feet is difficult terrain to your enemies. You gain a plus 10 5-foot status bonus to your speed. All of your allies get a plus 10-foot status bonus to their land speeds until the end of their turn. These bonuses also apply to fly speeds. Interesting that it actually differentiates between allies and enemies. But I guess it's a level 1. I'm curious why they decided to make the status bonus to speed smaller for yourself than it is for your allies. Seems like it would be a lot easier to boost yourself than others, but hey, your rogue will appreciate being able to flank easier. Or flank faster, I should say. Especially once you start getting like a 30-foot emanation with aura shaping. That is very good. I mean, it's kind of boring, but it doesn't have to be, like, action-packed and exciting to be good. Extra movement speed and restricting enemy movement is good, especially because this means that they can't take a step because it's difficult terrain. So Whisper on the Wind, this carries your words far away. It's the message spell of your level rounded up, or half your level rounded up. If you start your message with the target's name, you and the target don't need to be able to see each other. And at 8th level, the range is 1 mile, so this is just a better, well, it's not necessarily better. It is a better kind of message spell. I need to check, does message require... what am I looking for? Okay, so what this is useful for is not for the Kineticist infiltrates a building, and the Kineticist then whispers out intel to the rest of the group. This is useful for for the rogue of the party infiltrates a building, and the Kineticist is the walkie-talkie, because gathering an element is not stealthy. Like, wind flaps around your being and your hair spins around like you're in a gale is not stealthy. So this is good for communicating with allies who are sneaking around, and it is also very good for urban campaigns, because urban campaigns, it's very easy to be within 1 mile of people. So imagine, if you will, you're in an urban campaign and you know someone that you really hate. So the middle of the night you message them. Who needs the nightmare spell when you just have instant messaging to someone's ears and they don't know who you are? They can only return the message if they know your name. Oh, interesting, there's no level 2 air impulses. That kind of sucks if you're a dedicated gate for air. But there might be more, no, there are going to be more impulses in the final version of the book. Flinging Updraft, you choose a creature within 60 feet. That target then jumps to 30 feet in any direction. If the target doesn't land on a space of solid ground from 30 feet, it falls. but it doesn't take any damage from the fall. You choose the direction and distance of the jump. An unwilling target avoids being flung if it succeeds reflexive against your class DC. 60 feet and target up to 5 creatures in range at level 10. Oh my god, I love this. And this is a very dumb build. Like, exceptionally dumb build. But imagine, just imagine, if you would, for a second. Flinging Updraft. And you're level 20. And you pick Flawless Element for air. Oh wait, no, never mind. I thought that just reduced actions by 1. It's only for 3 action things. But still. Oh my god. Updraft is very good. Also, something that is important is, like, they don't take damage from the fall. So, like, if you're, I don't know, let's say, at the top of a 3-mile high cliff, and you use Flinging Updraft to throw someone off, they just fall gently 3 miles. Yeah, like, I feel like Flinging Updraft should, like, say, if you throw someone 30 feet directly up, they don't take damage from that fall. However, if you toss someone over a cliff, they will take damage. So, like, let's say something fun here. So you move someone, I don't know, over a certain amount of distance, but you move them up 10 feet over a cliff, and then they fall, let's say, a grand total of 40 feet. They only take 15 falling damage because 10 of those feet were vertical distance gained from Flinging Updraft. I don't think that Flinging Updraft should be able to be used to ignore falling damage in exploration. Currently it can. Also, I just love the ability that at level 10, if you against 5 low-level enemies, you just yeet them on cliffs. 2 actions, yeet everybody. And this is very useful for positioning your allies, although I feel like it is at its best for positioning allies. If you say, I'm going to use Flinging Updraft on someone, and then your party member has to consent or not consent, and then they shut up and you choose where they jump. And they don't get to say, hey, can you move me to this square? You get to pick, and they can't say shit about where you're gonna move them. Because otherwise, I mean, obviously, in a like really tactical table or a tense combat, absolutely let people go where they want to go. But I love the idea of just saying, oh no, the kineticist decides your fate. You might desperately want to get away and like get out of the front line because you're taking a lot of damage, but the kineticist says, get in that flank, motherfucker. Oh, come on, I already... More spam. I already thought that I... Yeah. I am just going to report... Okay. I reported that account that's been spamming. Because I want them to stop it, please. But, Soothing Breeze. So 3 actions, this is an overflow. Oh, this is healing. It's positive healing. 20-foot burst. This is not an aura. Extinguishes all small non-magical fires, just smokes and... Okay, each living creature in the area gains 3d4 hit points, and then it's temporarily immune for 10 minutes. So this is a way to get healing out of combat. I am... Okay, I mean, yeah, just simple healing effect is very useful. But where this is very good is if you have this and, I don't know, someone throws a fog cloud and you say, ha, fuck you. Or, I don't know, a area of poison or something. But clear as air, let's see exactly what has, I'm very sorry for the horrible mispronunciation of your name I'm about to do, but Kyuhei? But regardless, let's look at this. I'm terrible with names. It doesn't help. I'm just terrible. So 2 actions. This is overflow, so it should be good. It is an illusion. Diffract and bend light around you, making it see clear as sky. You become invisible until the start of your end of your next turn. You can sustain the impulse, but it ends if you take a hostile action, and after you use it, you can't use it again for 10 minutes. While you are clear as air, you can gather air quietly in invisibility, but the invisibility doesn't hide the manifestations of your abilities. At level 10, this impulse doesn't end if you take a hostile action, but you become concealed instead of invisible until the start of your next turn. And taking a hostile action has no effect on invisibility. See, this is too good. This is way too good. I actually, well, sorry. The exact text of what is written down is not too powerful. Like, okay, level 16's been 2 actions. It's an overflow impulse. You now have greater invisibility, but you do have to sustain it. But you can always take the feat that allows for you to sustain things as a free action. The reason why I think that this is too powerful is because it has no maximum duration. So I don't think that GMs are going to appreciate the Kineticist at level 6 turning invisibility, then saying my exploration activity is sustaining a spell, and being invisible for an entire infiltration session, and not having to deal with the normal duration of invisibility. Like, this needs, like, a maximum duration, where it's like, oh, you can use this for a max of 10 minutes. Before it ends, you then have to gather air as in the normal way, which is pretty obvious, because normally, while in clear air, you can gather air quietly. So I think that every 10 minutes, it should drop, and then you have to stealthily gather air again, then turn clear as air. That's still incredibly powerful, don't get me wrong. But it's less broken. Well, the thing is, well, no, because you can sustain the impulse, but it ends when you take a hostile action. And after you use this impulse, it can't be used again for 10 minutes. But the thing is, if you can sustain this spell, and as long as you don't, or not a spell, impulse, you can sustain this impulse for as long as you want. Like, as long as you don't take a hostile action and you sustain the spell, or impulse, I'm gonna make that up a lot, it just keeps on going. So, like, for combat, yeah, if you make a hostile action, it's over, no question, and you can't use it again for 10 minutes. But if you're using this as an infiltration tool, then it doesn't have a duration, effectively. So long as you can get away with spending 1 action a turn, sustaining it, you're invisible. It's still a very situational usage, but it's very good. And also at like level 16, you can easily have this and the feat that allows for you to sustain a spell or an impulse as a free action, which then means you have 4th level invisibility for the entirety of the campaign, or unless you don't want to be invisible, obviously. It's not the you don't always want to be invisible, because then people can't heal you unless they have C invisibility, but then even then they have a flat chance. Regardless, Storm Spiral is the first electricity ability that we've seen. I thought that they were just going to ignore it. So dark thunderclouds swirl in a miniature storm, crisscrossed with bolts of lightning. The storm appears in a 10-foot burst within 30 feet. Yeah, like, I think that you should only be able to use it for 10 minutes. But I don't know. Like, that is something that I feel needs clarification, I guess, is the way to put it. It needs clarification. But Storm Spiral. So a 10-foot burst within 30 feet of you. Creatures in the area take 3d12 electricity damage and is moved depending on their reflex save. This is overflow in 3 actions. So basic reflex save, but if they fail, you can move them up to 5 feet in a direction of your choice. And critical failure, they take double damage and you can move them up to 10 feet. Honestly, not super powerful, but you can do it all day long. And you can do this all combat long. Like, this is weaker than a focus spell because it doesn't cost focus points. Yeah, so it does work like sustaining a spell, which means so long as you can sustain it, it'll last a stupid amount of the time. I just want clarifications on exactly how it would work because I don't know. Crazy scouting missions are either going to drastically simplify things or kill a character, and I just want to know exactly how it'll work. But yeah, the damage on this isn't great, but you can do it all day. So, I mean, not all that much to complain about. Also, interestingly enough, if you need to hit yourself with any of your AoEs, you get resistance to them. Keep that in mind going. Have resistance to it, depending on no matter what your save is. Okay, so Celestial Palisade. Overflow, 3 actions. This is a wall of wind, except it's 3 feet long and any creature trying to fly through it. It lasts until the end of your next turn, but you can sustain it for, yeah, so this is the wording that is missing from Clear as Air. You can sustain it up to 1 minute. Clear as Air needs but you can sustain this up to 10 minutes. That is the particular wording that I'm looking for in Clear as Air. Thank you, Paizo, for giving me a good example to point to. I've got to love my internet connection not being good enough to stream a PD. Happens every once in a while whenever I'm streaming. It should pass shortly. Crossing my fingers. Wings of Air is very good. Come on. What is going on with my internet connection? Well, I'm just gonna keep on going. But Wings of Air gives you, okay. Celestial Palisade is very good. Wall of Wind, whenever you do need it, is very powerful. If you are fighting, or if you're in an encounter wherein, basically, if you're in an encounter where there is a lot of ranged projectiles going on, slapping down a wall of wind is going to drastically simplify the encounter. Let me I believe I might be back. Um, well, sorry, give me 1 second. Things aren't exactly working, but I believe I'm back. I had to restart my PC because apparently, according to everything, like I did some speed tests, I apparently didn't have an upload speed anymore. So, restarting my PC helped. I've said this before on other streams, but my PC is a hunk of junk. So I'll be real quick. So, uh, I just my setup is kind of held together by duct tape. So I just need to get the PDF back up. I'm not gonna have the stick figure back up because, again, held together with duct tape. So I'll be just back in like literally like 5 seconds, I think. Actually, oh yeah, I can do this. Okay, I'll be here whenever I'm fixing this. So, and if I drop again, then that's just the way my internet is apparently. So, hello, I'm going to be here for as long as I can until my internet decides to stop. If my internet does stop, I'm going to be calling it here for today, but I will be streaming again tomorrow, probably earlier in the day EST. Because I like streaming in the morning. The only reason why I'm streaming in the afternoon is because that's when the playtest came out. So, I'm here now though. So, let's get back to it. So, we just need to get back down to, the air blasts, and yeah, literally, on my PC sometimes I just don't have an internet speed. It just decides to completely and utterly die. It sucks. It only happens like once a month, and I can't tell when it happens, but it's not fun. We'll hope for the best. But at least I know that I can